Okay. All right, so we're going to be going ahead and adding some of the seaweed to our quinoa when we cook it. The reason I do this is it's going to add a lot of minerals and stuff to the quinoa. So whatever kind of grain you're cooking, if you add this, it's going to add a lot of minerals and things that are going to be really good for your body. And it's a really easy way. I love stuff that like I can just throw in there and it's going to add a lot of nutritional information, or it is a lot of nutritional information for my body. Like it's something that I'm going to absorb. So I put that all in there. The thing that's great about the rice cooker is I'm literally going to go over here. I'm going to plug it in, and I don't have to watch it. I don't have to touch it. It's going to cook for about 15, 20 minutes. You're going to see nice little bubbles of like holes on the top of it. You are going to pull up the lid after 5 minutes, give it a nice fluff, and it's good to go. I like to do a nice big batch for the week because then I can do all these fun things I'm going to show you guys with it right now. All right, so I'm just going to set this to the side. All right, so the first salad that we're going to make here is going to be a kind of Mexican salad. So I've got part of that lovely quinoa that I already cooked. And where the grilling portion of this kind of class comes in is what I love to do is I love to take corn and do it on the grill. So what you're going to do is you can either do it outside on the grill, or I'll actually go ahead and I'll just put it on an open flame on my back of my stove, and it's going to get nice and charred. And you guys can kind of see, I'm going to just kind of hold up the pieces to the screen. You can kind of see it's kind of charred, and it's going to add a nice flavor to our quinoa. It's going to be a little bit smoky. The other thing I like to do with the particular corn is I'll mix it with the quinoa. So I'm just going to add the quinoa right into the bowl right here. And the other thing I like to char on my stovetop or on my grill is I like to do.
It'll come out of the account tomorrow, right? Out of a checking account.
All right, who's talking?
You mean if they pay tonight? Oh, is it? Yeah, they pay.
All right, so we've got our quinoa, and we've got a poblano pepper.
Here?
Huh?
That I have went ahead and grilled off on my stove. You could do this on the grill as well. It just depends on what the weather's like. So if anybody's ever used a poblano pepper before, this is what it looks like before it's charred.
So
And all I'm going to go ahead and put it in a welded container.
But they're going to give a check.
Helen, mute.
Oh, on our system. They can do that? On approval online?
No, the extension. There's no approval online.
Oh, extension.
Who is still talking? Can you please?
They can pay an extension.
See who you are.
Helen is talking.
No, it's me.
All right. Okay, all right, let's try this again. So we've got our pepper that's steamed. It's that you can either cover it with plastic or with a lid. And what you're gonna do is I'm gonna set this aside so you guys can see it. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the pepper and I'm gonna go ahead and, hold on. All right, can you guys see it now? All right, so there's the pepper. We're just gonna kind of just take that char right off the outside. You can do this with a paper towel, or you can go ahead and do it just by hand like I'm doing here. And I like this because it's gonna add a nice smoky flavor to this without adding anything else to it. All right. And then all these scraps can go in my compost with my vegetables later. And I'm just gonna kind of take the seeds. You guys can kind of see there's seeds. I'm just gonna take those and kind of do them over the bowl to try and get the majority of them. They're not spicy, so if you leave them in, it's not gonna be a big deal. It's just gonna add a little bit more crunch to it. So I'm just gonna give this a quick chop. And this is gonna go in with our quinoa and our corn that we already have going. So we're gonna bring this back over, and we've got our quinoa, our corn, and our poblano pepper. We're just gonna give that a nice stir. I have right here, I have some tomatoes that have already been cut up. We're gonna add a little bit of them in there. So one of the things I like to do when I'm cooking is I want to try and eat as seasonally as possible. Nature knows what we're supposed to be eating. So like corn's starting to be in season right now. Tomatoes are starting to be in season. Lots of things with a lot of moisture content because it's really hot outside. So we need to be eating things that are going to be very hydrating. So I've just got the tomatoes in there. I'm only using part of them because we're going to be saving these for our other quinoa that's over here. I've also got some red peppers. You could also do yellow peppers because the more colors you get in your salad, the more nutrition you're going to get, the different vitamins. So I'm just going to add in some red peppers. You could also do some yellow or some green peppers. I'm just going to give that a stir. And then we have some heart-healthy beans right here. So we've got some black beans. If you cook them yourself, you're going to be able to control the salt a little bit more. Or you can go ahead and you can buy the low sodium beans as well, or give them a real rinse. They're a great thing that like really freezes very, very well. You could also substitute legumes, not legumes, but lentils instead, because ultimately some people have problems with beans and digesting them. If you cook them yourself, you're going to have less digestive problems with them because you're going to be able to rinse them, you're going to be able to soak them, and that helps break down some of that. Also, adding a little bit of acid when you're cooking it, whether that be baking soda or a little bit of vinegar, also helps break it down so it's more digestible. So we're just going to give that a nice stir. You can see like we're getting all these beautiful colors going. And I've also got some hominy because we're kind of sticking with like that Mexican kind of thing. I gave it a really nice rinse and let it soak to kind of remove some of that salt because I don't want it to be too salty. So we're just going to give that a nice stir. You can see it's starting to come together. It's starting to look like a salad. And the thing I really like about this salad is the longer it sits, the more the flavors are going to kind of come together, and it's going to be really nice and flavorful for us. So I'm not going to be doing like a composed vinaigrette. I'm just going to be seasoning as I go. The next salad, one of the other salads, I'll go through making a vinaigrette. But for this one, I'm actually just got some limes that I've cut up. I like to quarter them. I get the most juice out of them that way. I'm just going to give them a nice squeeze over the. All right, I'm going to mute somebody else that just came in. All right, I think I got everybody muted. All right, so we're going to go ahead and squeeze some lime, and I'm going to be adding an oil to this too, just to kind of bind it together. Also, we do need a little bit of fat to help us be able to absorb some of the vitamins and nutrients in our vegetables as well. So not a lot of fat, but just a little. I like to use acid to kind of take the place of the salt. Using acids or vinegar is a really easy way to cut the amount of sodium you're using down, because it kind of mimics salt in a lot of ways. So I've got about 2 limes that I cut up here that I'm just going ahead and I'm going to give that a nice toss. Like I said earlier, I am going to be adding a little bit of oil. I have some olive oil here that I'm going to be adding. Not a lot, just to kind of enough to bring it together. Great. We've also got some green onions. Green onions are really great. They're also something that's very easy to add. It's not going to have a very concentrated flavor that's overly powering of onions. So it's great if you have kids or whatever and they don't really necessarily like that onion flavor. It's a little bit more palatable. Scallions are a great use for that. You could also do shallots if you're wanting that onion flavor, but not quite so much onion flavor that may be overpowering for some people. All right, so we've got our scallions right there, all chopped up and ready to go. We're gonna throw those in the bowl. I always like to cut my tops and bottoms separately because they kind of do cut differently. The great thing about these two, you could throw the bottoms of them on the grill and get a nice char on them, which is great for this time of year. So you could just throw these on when you're doing your steaks or your salmon or whatever you're cooking on them. And I like to take the bottoms of these and I actually put these in a little bowl on my counter in my kitchen, and the tops will regrow. So I always have plenty of green onions on hand. And you can do that about 2 or 3 times before you need to get rid of them. All right, so we've got the bottoms of it all chopped up. We're gonna toss that in there. And we're gonna bring our bowl right back here. All right. So I don't know if you guys can see in there, but we've got all these beautiful colors going on now. So kind of getting to the point where we're kind of eating the rainbow. We could add a red onion in there too if we're wanting to get those colors in as well. And so I am going to be adding a little bit of salt. When I do use salt, I like to use Celtic salt because it has all the minerals and stuff in it. And I'm only going to be using a little bit, and I grind it finer myself because it comes really chunky. And I'm just adding a little bit, not a lot, just to kind of give us, kind of bring all the flavors together, because that's what salt does in cooking, is it kind of brings the flavors together. So you need just a little bit, not a lot. And then I'm going to add some fresh black pepper as well. All right, we're going to give this a stir. And the other thing I have right here, I usually use dry, but there's also canned chipotle. I just chopped it up really finely because I like a little bit of heat to my stuff, but I want to have flavor, and chipotles are great for that because they're going to add flavor, a little bit of smokiness, so it's going to complement those poblanos that we have that are smoked, also the corn that's grilled. So we're just going to go ahead and add that right in there. All right. And that is our first salad, you guys. So we've got this beautiful quinoa salad. And the thing I like about this is I can either serve it just like this, or I can go ahead and have some romaine cut or mixed greens and go ahead and combine those together to stretch this even farther, or to add some more greens to this. It would go well with kale as well. So, and the thing I like to do whenever I'm cooking is I want to make sure that everything tastes really good. And so it's very important as you're cooking, whether you're doing it on just the countertop or whether you're doing it on the stove, that you're seasoning. So it's always important to taste to see where it's at. So you're going to see at different times of the year, certain things are going to be different flavors and different textures. And so the sweet corn starting to come into season, so it's going to be really sweet. If you get it in the winter, it's not going to be as sweet. So that's why you want to try and eat as seasonally as possible, because you're going to get the best produce and it's going to have the most flavor. So it's got a nice bite to it. I'm going to let this sit, because as it sits, it's going to absorb everything that's in there, and I'm going to be able to come back to it and see where it's at. So I'm just going to set this aside. And
Chrissy,
we're starting
John
with the next
Frank.
salad.
Chrissy, I just want to let you know your camera is not in front of you, it's off to your right side. So when you held that bowl up, we couldn't see it.
Oh, okay.
It's more kind of near your, down farther, down, down, down. That's too high. Further down, further down, lower, and then turn it towards your right a little bit. That's good. More to your
There you
right.
No.
No, turn the bowl to your right.
Okay, you're looking at a different camera. There's 2 cameras.
Okay. Oh,
All right, so that was our first salad, and I'll show you guys that. I'm going to plate it up at the end so you guys can all see it. It'll be fine. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and I'm going to wash my hands really quick.
Chrissy, this is Candy. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, so we're actually putting the questions in the chat, and then I was going to answer them all at the end. Is it a pertinent question that has to be asked right now, or can I wait till the end?
Just curious about how long that will sit in the refrigerator. Like, what is
So
the...
my rule of thumb with most stuff is that it's going to be 7 days, unless you're going to have any meat or dairy. And we
Thank
did
you.
not add any dairy to that. So, all right, awesome. All right, so we're going to start on our next salad. So that salad could have got cotija cheese, the crumbly Mexican cheese. That would be a nice compliment if you do dairy. If you don't do dairy, just leave it out. You're not going to be missing anything. It's just, it does add a nice like salty flavor to it, but you don't need a lot of it. Again, it depends on what you're looking to do. So we've got some, this is a nice, quick, easy salad. We've got the quinoa that we already cooked. And we have some pesto that I made ahead of time. And we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna toss the pesto into our quinoa. And when I make pesto, I like to have garlic in there, so it's gonna be really good. I also like to do it with arugula as opposed to basil. The reason I like to do it with arugula as opposed to basil is it's a little bit cheaper. Also, arugula is really great for detoxing your body. So it's a really good bitter herb. And I always like to pair it with pecans, so it kind of balances it out and it's a little bit buttery. So as you guys can see, it's kind of all coming together and it's nicely coated. And I'm going to take those other tomatoes that we had from the other salad that I chopped. We're going to go ahead and toss those right in there. And because I already had some seasoning in the pesto, we're not going to need to add a lot of seasonings. I'm not going to have to add any oil. It's already kind of all contained right there in the pesto itself. All right. Okay. And what I like to do with this salad is I have some grilled vegetables. You could grill them, you could roast them, and I have some asparagus here. I also have some squash, yellow squash. I have some more roasted tomatoes, and then I have some red onions as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take out the asparagus and I'm gonna give that a nice little chop. I'm gonna add in, we have the yellow squash and the onions and the grilled tomatoes. Mushrooms would also be a great addition to this. And all I'm going to do is go through here. I've got my grilled asparagus, and I'm just going to give that a nice chop. And what goes really great with this salad would be either, if you were doing dairy, would be a goat cheese, or if you're not too worried, if you just used a little bit, because feta is kind of salty, if you use just a little bit of the feta, that would be nice with this as well. Today, I'm going to be using, a lot of people aren't familiar with this, but it's burrata cheese. It's similar to a fresh mozzarella. It's very ooey gooey, and I personally love it. I think it's great. So that would be what's going to get served on top. So you guys, this is what the salad looks like. I'll be plating this at the end so you can all see it, but that's what it looks like right now. We're going to give it a quick taste, see if we need to add anything to it. That's really good. The basil, or not the basil, but the arugula was really, really good. All right. All right, so we've got 2 salads done already, so we're gonna go ahead and set this one to the side, and we're gonna get going on our last salad really quick. All right. All right, so raise of hands. Who likes cooking or eating kale? Kale? Kale fans, anybody? No? Okay. I see you, that's okay. I'm gonna tell you how to do kale right, okay? I'm just gonna move this aside, I'm gonna bring the kale over, and we're gonna talk about this. All right, so when I do kale, I soak my kale. I like to soak it in warm water, and I like to soak it for a few hours, actually. And depending on whether you get it fresh or whether you get it from the store is going to depend on how bitter it is. When I get it from my garden, it's really, really bitter, and I'll soak it long. If I get it from the store, it's sometimes not as bitter. If you don't like kale because it's bitter, another option is to do baby kale because it's not as fibersome and it's not as bitter as well. All right. The other thing about kale, besides soaking it, that I do is when you're, I'm gonna just show you guys how to do the sprigs. When I do it, I'm gonna take it off of the stem. I don't like any of that stem part on there. This is so fibrous. It's really hard for our digestive systems to break down. If you buy kale pre-cut, it usually has bits of these, and I usually go through and I'll tear those off completely because I don't want to eat this. You don't want to eat this. So once you have it torn off, I like to break it down even farther. And sometimes I just do this with my hands. Sometimes I'll do it with a knife. It just really depends. Also, the other thing is when you're doing the soaking, what I like to do is I like to get it out of there completely. I'm going to dump this water because if you go ahead and a lot of people use a strainer and they'll strain it and then they'll dump all that liquid right over top of it. So you've just washed it and got it dirty again. So you don't want to do that. So we're going to go ahead and dump this. And I'm going to put this in my salad spinner really quick and give it a quick spin. All right, got most of the liquid. The other thing I like to do with it is I want to make sure that I've got it really good and dry. So I'll do this with either a really nice kitchen towel or another thing that works really good is like a flour sack towel. And I just dump it all the way out. This is actually how I store it too when I'm done. If I'm not tossing it with a dressing, I'll wrap it up. I'll actually show you guys real quick how I do it. So I'm just gonna wrap it all the way up like this, like a kind of like a burrito. And I bring the sides in, and I'll store it in my fridge like this because it keeps really, really well like this. So I'm just gonna make sure it's really dry. I'm gonna open this back up. And you can either do this by hand or you can chop it. I like to chop my kale really fine. It helps break it down. The other thing is when we do our dressing, I'm actually gonna massage the dressing into the kale. Again, this helps break it down so it's not so fibersome. It's also gonna make sure it's not so bitter as well. All right. All right, so I like to bring it into a nice pile all together. And I like to gather it all together. You want to make sure you have your knuckles as kind of your guide so that you make sure you keep your fingers. All right, and then I bring it back together again, and I'm going to just change the direction of the pile so that I'm getting it finer and finer as I do it. All right, so you guys can kind of see they're pretty small pieces. If you wanted to go finer than that, you could as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and I have some more kale that I had done up ahead of time. So we've got some kale in our bowl all set to go. And we're going to take a moment and we are going to be making a lemon vinaigrette. So I'm going to set our chipotle stuff off to the side. All right. So I've got some lemon juice that I already juiced right here. I like to use fresh lemon juice. I don't ever buy the pre-made stuff because it's always got preservatives and it doesn't taste like real lemons to me. It just doesn't. So we've got lemon right here. I've also got another lemon right here. I'm going to go ahead and be using a microplane. You could also use a box grater because I want to have the outside of this peel. There's so much vitamins and vitamin C in the peel, and a lot of people throw this away. If you are using the peel, I do recommend that you use organic versus non-organic because the pesticides and stuff are found more in the skin. That's why if I'm going to buy organic, I'm going to make sure I'm using all of it. So we're just going to give this a nice grate. And I've got 1 juice of lemon in here so far, and I'm just going to go ahead and zest. This is a really big lemon, so I'm going to only do about half of this. And this is going to give a really nice brightness to our salad. All right, and I just want to clean off the back side of that. Make sure I've got it all right there. And the other thing we're going to be adding to our salad dressing is we're going to be adding some ginger. I love working with ginger. It's really great for our digestive system. It's really good for inflammation. So many people have digestive issues anymore. It's really great. And it's got antibacterial properties as well. So there's a couple different ways that you can do garlic. You can either do it with a peeler or you can do it with the back side of the spoon as well. Either one works. Sometimes if it's a little bit older ginger, the peeler I will definitely use. If it's a little bit younger, you're going to be able to peel it with the back of the spoon really easily. And not everybody likes ginger, but it's a really great way to get some digestive stuff in. Also, if you use just a little bit, a lot of people won't even notice that you have it in there. So I don't like to use the peel because it's really bitter. Like some things I want to have some bitterness to help my digestive system, but not on ginger. It's not very good. So once we've peeled our ginger, I'm just going to use the same microplane that I had before. I don't like to mince ginger. It's a little bit hard to do. And also I want it to blend really smoothly with my vinaigrette. All right. So we've got that all in there. I'm just going to grab our whisk and some oil and the honey that I have right here behind me. All right. All right, now we are ready to do our beautiful vinaigrette. We're gonna go ahead and grab the whisk that I'm hiding from myself. All right, here we go. All right, so we're gonna whisk. So whenever you're making a vinaigrette, you wanna make sure that you start with your oils and whatever seasonings you have. You wanna make sure that you're slowly adding in the oil and a very slow drizzle. When you do that, you're going to create emulsification. And basically what that means, if anybody's ever seen Italian dressing and you always see how it separates out into layers, that means somebody didn't emulsify it properly. So if you do it really slowly, you'll get that nice emulsification and it won't separate ever. And you can do this either by hand like I'm doing here, or you can do it in a blender or a food processor as well. And the thing that's really nice about this vinaigrette, and most vinaigrettes, they keep for a really extended long time in your refrigerator. And so you could do a nice big batch and it's gonna keep in your refrigerator for a month, 2 months, which is really nice. So as you guys can see, the bowl's starting to turn a little bit more opaque. That means it's starting to emulsify. Sometimes when I do this one in the food processor or the blender, it will get so thick, I will actually have to thin it out with a little bit of water. So. All right. So how do you know when you've got enough vinegar to oil ratio? I always taste it. I always want to know, like, okay, is it as acidic as I want it to be? The general rule of thumb is you want 1 part vinegar to 3 parts oil. But sometimes I like mine a little bit, have a little bit more of a pucker to it. I want it to be a little bit more tart. So that's why I always just taste it and see where I'm at. So definitely very puckery. So we're going to add some more oil. It's a little bit too much even for me, and I love pucker. So. And keep in mind, we're going to be adding a little bit of honey to this. So we don't necessarily want it to be like so much so that we don't have any pucker. We're going to be adding just a little bit of sweetness. All right, that's right where I want it. So I'm going to be going ahead and I'm going to be adding some raw honey. I like to cook with raw honey because it's got, again, I'm looking for all the vitamins and stuff that I can get. I'm not going to be adding all of this. I just kind of wanted to get it out of the jar. And we're just gonna give this a nice little swirl and kind of get that nice and incorporated. And I never want to add my sweetener until after I've got it to the emulsification that I want it. Because after you add the sugar, it will not emulsify any farther. So you can't get it any thicker than what it is. So always make sure it's where you want it to be on that end. All right. Vinaigrettes are really simple. It's oil, a vinegar, or a lemon, or lime juice, or balsamic, and then you're gonna add an oil and some seasonings to it. So we've got some black pepper. I always recommend grinding your own if you can, because you're gonna have so much more flavor. And the thing is, especially when you're trying to cook food that's a little bit more low in sodium, you want all your other ingredients to be really high in flavor, because then you're not missing that salt. So speaking of the salt, again, I've got my Saltic salt. I'm just going to be using a little pinch right in there. And there we go. I'm going to give it one more taste. See where we're at. Yep, that's right where I want it. If you ever find that the vinaigrette is not where you want it after you dress your salad, you can always adjust in the salad as well. All right. So, all right, I talked about massaging the kale. This is what we're going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some of our vinaigrette. Give it a nice drizzle. All right. Check the time. All right. We're going to take this, and I'm literally just going in there, and I'm giving it a nice massage. And depending on what kind of salad and how finely I've done the kale will depend on how much I massage this. The thing about kale that's really great is it's going to hold up really well to salad dressings. Like, I love to do a nice kale Caesar when I'm having entertaining and guests, because it's going to hold up really well. Usually if you do it with romaine, it's going to get really limp. By the time you get a plate as the host, it's going to be really soggy. This is not going to do that. This is going to hold up really, really well. All right. So you can see that the volume has gone down dramatically, right? Like, we started with a lot of kale, and now we've got kale, but there's not nearly as much since it's kind of got nice and massaged. All right, since I've got my hand already in here, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mix the rest of these ingredients in by my hand too. So I've got some mango. I love mango. It's really good for you. It's really high in vitamin A and C. I'm just gonna throw in. We're gonna give that a nice little toss. And then this is where you get to be creative. Like, whatever fruits or vegetables are in season, you can go ahead and add to the salad. I like to do this one with fruit, but you could do it with vegetables as well. In the fall, I like to do this one with apples and pears is really good too. So you also can add some nice crunchy nuts. So whenever I'm doing a salad, I want to make sure that I'm hitting a few different points. I want to make sure that there's some acid. I want to make sure that there's some texture, like different textures. I want to make sure there's fat and that there's some protein in there as well. So I've got some sunflower seeds here. I also have a little bit of pistachios in here as well. I'm just going to give those a nice toss. And sunflower seeds are usually a safe bet. If anybody who has any nut allergies, that's usually a nice safe one that you can do. The other thing I like to do is, and I'm going to add a few of them in here, is pumpkin seeds. That's another great one to add in here. So I'm just going to give that a nice toss all together. Add just a little bit more of our mangoes right on top. All right. And you can also add some dry fruit in here as well. I like to add some cranberries in here. This is also a really great one for goat cheese. Pairs really well with the salad. All right. All right. So for those of you who do not like kale, I do have another option for you today. So how many people have used rainbow char? Rainbow char? Anybody familiar with rainbow char? All right. I love rainbow char. It's really great. Again, I've got it soaking in my bowl because I wanted to make sure it was nice and clean. So I'm going to dump that out. So rainbow char is really nice. I want to talk about it for just a moment. We're going to give it a nice dry. Make sure it's dry. And you guys see these beautiful like stems on these? I love these. These are great. So we're just going to give them a nice chop. And the thing about the ends is they're totally edible too. And they're going to add a nice crunch. And they can also be cooked or you can serve them raw. If you serve them cooked, I like to do them with a little bit of onions and saute them a little bit. And they're going to get that, they'll still keep some of that beautiful color on them as well. But it's really crunchy, kind of like a celery, which is really nice. So I'm actually going to add this into our kale salad because look at that. Look at that beautiful color, you guys. I don't know if you guys could see the color. But yeah, it's really pretty. And it's really great for us as well. So it's not just pretty, it's really good for us. So we're going to go ahead and we'll add that into our salad. But the thing that's nice about this is it's not quite as fibersome as kale. What I like to do sometimes is I'll actually cut it into pieces like this. And you can actually do it as like a wrap. So I'll throw in some veggies and kind of roll it up. There's this really great sauce that I get from Costco, and you just roll it up as an almond chipotle sauce, and you roll it up, and you have all these veggies, and you have the sauce, and it's just delicious. But if you're wanting to use it as a salad green, you can just take, just like the kale, you're going to go ahead and these bigger pieces right here, you don't want to eat that because it's going to be super, super fibersome. If I was going ahead and I was sauteing this, I'm just going to roll this all together because it's going to break down. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and roll it together, and I'm going to go through, and I'm going to give it a nice chop. All right. And yeah, this is going to go in a saute pan with some onions, and like you can go ahead and add that together. You could also toss it with some of the quinoa. I like to do it with raisins. Maybe a little bit of white wine is really good with it too. So lots of different options you can do with the Swiss chard. And it's often overlooked by a lot of people, but it's really good, especially this time of year. So we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to roll that up. Because again, this is a great way to store your lettuce, is just to wrap it all up until you're ready for it later. All right, so if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. Don't forget about that. I'm going to go ahead and just clean up for just a second, and then we're going to get going on our dessert. All right. So who likes mangoes? Anybody like mangoes? I love mangoes. All right. All right, you guys. Okay, so I pulled out the blender, and this is the simplest dessert you're gonna ever make. Like, it's got 3 ingredients. It's so simple. So I've got some frozen mangoes. We're gonna throw those right into the blender. I've got a can of coconut milk. So I don't know how many people are familiar with coconut milk, but it always has this beautiful thick topping. This topping, if you just whipped it by itself, like, is gonna make you a beautiful dairy-free whipped cream. So you could always do that, but I'm actually gonna be using the whole can today. So on the top is this beautiful thick cream, but then you get to the bottom and you're gonna end up with something that looks like this in the bottom. So not quite as creamy, but just as delicious. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw that right in here. The thing that's nice about this is if you wanted to, you could very easily make this into a adult dessert. You could easily throw some rum or some vodka or something in here as well. So I've got a lime right here that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a quick chop. And we're going to add just a squeeze of lime. All right. All right. Quick squeeze of lime. I'm going to actually do half a lime. I like it a little bit puckery. There we go. We're going to go ahead and throw on the top, so it's going to be loud for just a second. Bear with me. All right. So now we have this beautiful mango ice cream. Like you're going to see, it looks just like ice cream. I can scoop it just like ice cream. And if you let it set up in the fridge, it's going to get a little bit firmer, a little bit soft, but it's not too bad. So you have your beautiful little cup of mango coconut ice cream. And I want to make it extra fancy. So I've got some toasted coconut on here. I'm just going to throw on the top. And then we have some of the mango from earlier that we saved. There we go. All right. And then we're just going to add some mango right on top. And then you have this beautiful little mango ice cream. Doesn't that look delicious, you guys? Does anybody want to eat it? Raise your hand if you want to eat it. Doesn't that look good? Yeah. And guess what? We didn't have any sugar. That was completely sugar-free. But while we're talking about sugar-free, I do want to talk about that for just a moment. If you are looking for different ways to sweeten your stuff that is a little bit better for you and is not processed sugar, I found that coconut sugar is really great. It's really good for diabetics as well because it's not processed like regular sugar, so it doesn't cause that blood sugar spike, which is really nice. I have a lot of family members who are diabetic, and so this is a really great one. Also, just using dates for your sweetener instead. You just take some dates and you put it, some boiling water over top of it, and you blend it, and you can use it as a sweetener, which is really nice too. So I'm going to plate up everything that we just made so you guys can see it all plated up. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmute you guys. Actually, I'm going to check the chat real quick and then I'll plate you guys up. All right. All right, nobody had any questions. All right. All right, I'm going to unmute you guys really quick. And then if you guys have a question, just raise your hand and I'm going to go ahead and answer while I plate all the stuff up. Thanks for bearing with me, you guys. I've got just about got everybody unmuted, I think. If I haven't, just let me know. All right, so if you have a question, just raise your hand. All right, Candy, what's your question?
You have two questions. This
Okay.
coconut sugar, can
Yes.
that be switched out in baking?
It depends on what it is. It
Muffins,
depends on what it is.
scones?
So I typically will use it in place of, say, like brown sugar.
Okay,
Because it does have that kind of a flavor about it. So
Okay. typically
I'll use it in place of brown sugar. If I'm looking for it to replace like white sugar or something, I'll probably use a different sweetener for that.
okay. And then the other question is, in your salads, when you do add the cheese, whether it's the feta cheese or the goat cheese or the burrata, then how
Yeah.
long can the salad last in the fridge?
Okay, so usually what I do with the cheese is, because I do have a lot of people who are dairy free around me, and also it keeps the salad from like going bad faster.
Mhm.
I will put the cheese on right before I'm ready to serve it.
Okay.
So I
All
don't
right,
toss
makes
it in there with it. Like if I'm going to eat it for dinner that night, then I pull the cheese and I sprinkle it on top
Okay.
or toss it together. So. All right.
Thank you.
I had a
You're
question.
welcome, Katie. Anybody else have questions? All right.
Yes. I had asked, what did you put into the rice cooker? Because there
So
was
the
a
rice
lot of
cooker was
interference.
quinoa. So the rice cooker was quinoa. Let me. So,
No, but what was the thing that you said you put into it?
Oh, okay. Let me grab it real quick for you.
Because that's when we had a lot of the interference.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a seaweed. It's a seaweed. It's really high in a lot of different minerals and stuff that most people don't get in their diet. So I like to use this. It's so easy because it's dry. I literally just throw it in the rice cooker with it. If I'm cooking anything on the stove, even if I'm doing pasta or something on the stove, I'll throw a piece because it starts to absorb into whatever you're cooking with it. So it's a great way to like just add some nutritional benefit. Speaking of which, I forgot to do it in here, but in our salad when we were doing the lemon vinaigrette, what I like to do in there is I like to add a little bit of chia seeds to it. Because again, it's a nice, easy way to add some nutrition, very, very simply, like without being like super crazy about it. So I'll add that into the lemon vinaigrette. I'll also add some turmeric in there as well, and it makes it this nice yellow color. So, all right. Who else has a question?
Okay, my other one was, where do you get the coconut sugar?
So the coconut sugar you can find in most stores now. I'm not sure what area do you live in?
Mundelein.
Mundelein? Okay. Is there a Woodman's, a Jewel?
All of them.
Okay, yep. Woodman's I know carries it. If there's a lot of like Fruitful Yields in the specialty, like health food stores definitely carry it, but most grocery stores carry it now too. So yeah, and I love using it. It's a great replacement. So. All right, who else has a question? Anybody? All right, if not, then what I'm gonna do real quickly is I'm gonna plate up those salads so you guys can all see them real
Chrissy, could I just ask, if you don't have a rice cooker, how would you recommend cooking the quinoa?
Say what?
If you don't have a rice cooker, how would you recommend cooking the quinoa?
Okay, so if you're cooking rice or quinoa on the stove, the key with it is once it comes to a boil, you've got the water in the quinoa. Once it comes to a boil, which usually takes about 7 to 10 minutes, you're going to turn off the burner. You're going to make sure it's covered, and you let it sit for another 10 minutes, and then you fluff it. So that's how you would do that.
Thanks.
Are you going to have the recipes printed or available?
I will be sending them out via John. So he will have those all for you. Also, I was going to say, if you guys would like, I do a newsletter. So if you'd like any other information, you can put your email in the chat, and I will email you the newsletters that I send out.
I'll pass those recipes along through our newsletter.
All right. All right. So we've got our kale salad. So as it falls down, but you guys can kind of see it. All right, so that's our one salad that we have. And then we have our pesto salad that had the roasted vegetables and everything in it. So we're gonna go ahead and put those right in the bowl like so. And I'm gonna take an overhead shot so you guys can see these as well. Here in a second. So we've got our salad 1, 2, and we got our third salad coming up right now. And again, what I said is really nice with these salads is they do hold up. All of these salads are gonna hold up for 7 days, which is really nice. Then you can make a big batch for the week and you don't have to do it again. All right. So I wanted to show you guys that burrata cheese really quick. So for those of you who have never worked with burrata cheese, it comes in a liquid just like you would for fresh mozzarella.
Trader Joe's has it.
Yeah, Trader Joe's carries it, Jewel carries it, Mariano's carries it, most places carry it. Well, the thing that's really nice, and I'm going to try and show you guys, is it just very ooey gooey. We'll just do a piece right on the top of there. And what I like to do with that is just give it a nice little sprinkle of salt right on top, and pepper, just a little bit of salt, and then some extra virgin olive oil right on top.
We lost the camera.
Yeah, we can't see
The
anything.
one camera stopped.
Okay, no worries. Thanks for bearing with me. We'll get it back up.
How do you send the chat?
It's at the bottom of the screen.
Right, but how do you send it?
It's
Just hit
there.
enter.
I can see it. I can see whatever you put in it.
Okay.
So you guys can see the cheese on top of the salad, and then there is our beautiful kale salad, which, like I said, would be great with some goat cheese on there. And then we've got our Mexican salad, which would be really good with some cojilla cheese. And then we have our beautiful mango ice cream. All right.
How would you make the kale salad if you're like somebody on Warfarin, so you avoid kale? Like, what would you substitute for the kale?
So what you could substitute for the kale if you're not wanting to do kale, you could go ahead and you could do romaine. What I would say is have all your other toppings and toss everything right before you're ready to eat, because it's not going to hold up as well. So that would be the option for that. Because if you were to do the rainbow char, it holds up a little bit better than, say, the romaine, but it does not hold up as well as the kale, because kale's a really hardy, like wintry fall, like green, and so it's a little bit hardier. So, yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I see that you recorded this. Is there somehow we can go back and look at it again?
Yeah, so I will be sending it off to John. So he will have a copy of it, and so you will have access to it as well. I did, when we had that little bit of a mismatch at the beginning, I didn't get the first couple of minutes, but I did start recording shortly after I talked about the quinoa, so it will all be in. So.
Yeah, we've been posting all these virtual meetings on our Facebook page, North Shore Mandated Facebook. So once I get the recording, I'll upload it to that. You can watch it there. There's also last month's is up there too, if you want to hear what the head of cardiology said about heart disease and COVID.
Yeah.
I see another question on the Mexican salad. If tomato is something your digestive system is not liking very much lately, what would you suggest as a switch out on that item?
So typically whenever I'm doing any of this stuff, it's very like fluid. Like if you could just leave it out completely.
Okay.
That would be an option, completely just leave it out. Like I could have added I have an avocado I could add to it. So if you wanted to add an avocado, that would be good. Like the thing about cooking is it's really like, okay, like how many ingredients do I want to get out of my fridge? Like if you have the basics, again, like if you have your lettuce, you have your acid, you have your oil, you're getting your crunch, texture wise, like that's, as long as you have those basic building blocks, you're going to be good. Your salad's going to be really enjoyable. So yeah.
And then on the ice cream, you put that in the freezer once you make it?
Yes, you can go ahead and put it in the freezer once you make it. I usually, if I'm making it, I usually try and enjoy it that night that I do it in the blender or the food processor. It will keep in your freezer, but you will need to pull it out a little bit ahead of time so it has a chance to soften up, because it doesn't have any of those additives that make like ice cream super soft. Like, you know, so it's more natural in that way. So like you have to kind of do your due diligence, just like when you buy bread that doesn't have preservatives. You know it's gonna go bad in a few days.
Yes.
And could you do that ice cream?
Yeah, what about the ice cream?
I said, could you do that ice cream with various different kinds of frozen fruit? Like, as long as you do the coconut milk, that's really your base.
Yes, I actually want to pull out. I just did one today, and I want to show you guys. All right, so we have another ice cream, and I love cherries. I don't know about you guys, but chocolate covered cherries. Does that sound good to anybody? Does anybody like chocolate covered cherries? All right. All right, let me grab my other scoop. So I have, it hasn't quite set up yet because I added a little bit more liquid to this, but we have it's a chocolate covered cherry. And all I had in this one was dark cherries. And I did a little bit of cacao powder, which is a chocolate powder, and I added a little bit of nut milk to it. So you guys can kind of see. Like it hasn't quite set up yet, but yeah. And then you could do some fresh cherries right on top would be really good. Again, you could take the top of the coconut milk and make some whipped cream and do on top of that, and do some cocoa nibs or some mini chocolate chips would be really good too. So to answer your question, you can do lots of different things as far as frozen stuff. One of the bases I like to do is what's called nice cream, which the base of it is bananas. You have frozen bananas that you put in the food processor. You add a little bit of whatever kind of liquid, whether you want to do coconut milk or macadamia milk or almond milk or cashew milk, any kind of milk that you want to it, and then you just blend it together. And because the fruit's naturally sweet, you're not going to have to add any extra sweetener, which is really nice. You could also go ahead and do banana and cocoa, and you could do like a mint chocolate chip, which would be delicious too. So yeah. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, if nobody else has any questions, I want to thank you guys so much for inviting me to your group. I hope you guys learned a lot. And I hope to be back again to teach you guys some more healthy.
Great,
Again,
thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you guys, have a wonderful evening. And John, I'll get that information off to you so you have that to share with everybody. All right,
Great.
you guys, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye. Take care.
Zoom wave.